I clutched the envelope like it was a live grenade, my manicured nails digging into the crisp paper as the dean droned on about future leaders below the stage. Mom, or the woman who'd raised me for 22 years, had slipped it into my hand during the pre-ceremony hug. Her Botox-frozen smile cracking just enough to whisper, "Read it after."
Claire.
It's for the best. But I tore it open right there in the wings, heart slamming like a bass drop at a frat party. And those words hit harder than any blackout drunk night. Legal disownment. You are not. And never were. A Harrington. The crowd's applause for the salutatorian thundered like Judgment Day. But all I could hear was the blood rushing in my ears. Betrayed. Erased. In front of 5,000 people who'd toasted my straight-A ass all semester. I wanted to scream, to hurl the thing into the void and watch it burn. But instead, I straightened my gown, stepped into the spotlight, and thought, fuck you all. This isn't over. And then the CEO of Apex Dynamics, Dad's old rival, the man who'd built an empire on the bones of cutthroat mergers, leaned into the mic, his voice booming over the PA. "Ladies and gentlemen, our valedictorian and recipient of the Harrington Innovation Scholarship, Claire Harrington." The freeze was instant. Mom's face went sheet white in the front row. Dad's jaw unhinged like a bad Botox job, and the entire Harrington clan looked like they'd swallowed a swarm of hornets. Little did they know, I'd been playing their game longer than they realized. Longer than this body had even been mine. My name's Claire Harrington, at least. That's what the diplomas say. The trust funds whisper. And the society pages have plastered across 1,000 glossy spreads since I was old enough to pose in seersucker at the Hamptons. But as I stood there on that sweltering June afternoon in Cambridge, the Charles River glittering like a smug bastard under the sun, I knew the truth they'd buried deeper than Grandpa's offshore accounts. I wasn't their Claire. Not the blue-blooded heir to Harrington Capital. The girl born with a silver spoon and a pedigree that could buy senators.
No.
I was the switch, the accidental swap, the lab rat miracle gone wrong in some Ivy League fertility clinic back in '03, when their precious embryo got crossed with some nobodies from the wrong side of the tracks. It started as a whisper in my blood. That itch you can't scratch. The one that made me question why Dad's eyes always slid past mine at the dinner table. Why Mom's hugs felt like obligation wrapped in Chanel No.
5.
I was 16 when I first hacked the family server. Easy pickings for a girl who taught herself code between cotillion lessons and AP Calc. Buried in encrypted folders labeled Project Legacy, I found the files. Ultrasound mismatches. DNA discrepancies. A panicked email chain from the clinic's director to Dad's lawyer. Contamination event, it read. Embryos swapped in vitro. Recommend termination of both to avoid scandal. But Dad, ever the dealmaker, saw opportunity. He paid off the clinic, scrubbed the records, and raised me as his own, molding me into the perfect heir, while the real Claire, my genetic twin in all but nurture, scraped by in foster homes across the Rust Belt. Her name was Claire too. Or, at least that's what the redacted birth certs called her, Claire Donovan. Born to a junkie mom in a Detroit trailer park. Abandoned at 3 months, when the state swooped in. She bounced through the system like a pinball in hell. Group homes in Cleveland. A runaway stint in Chicago. Juvie for boosting a car in Philly. By 18, she'd clawed her way into community college on a Pell Grant, majoring in business because fuck the rich. I'll learn how to bleed dry. I found her online profile buried in a forum for foster kid entrepreneurs, grainy photo of a girl with my face. My eyes. But hardened by streets I'd only seen in Netflix true crime docs. We could have been sisters. Mirrors. But fate, or Dad's hubris, made us ghosts in each other's lives. I didn't confront them. Not then. Revenge isn't a scream, it's a scalpel. So I played the part, valedictorian at Harvard Business School, interning at Apex Dynamics under that CEO, Harlan Voss, who saw something in me Dad never did, a killer instinct untainted by entitlement. Voss mentored me, slipped me boardroom secrets over steak frites at the Harvard Club, and when I pitched my thesis on AI-driven mergers, he didn't just fund it, he made me his shadow. You're not like them, Claire, he'd say, puffing a cigar that smelled like old money and older grudges. Harrington's a viper pit. You're the ASP in the grass. Graduation day was supposed to be my coronation, the speech I'd written in blood and Red Bull, outlining how Harrington Capital would pivot to ethical AI under my watch. But as I walked the stage, that envelope burning a hole in my pocket, I saw the trap snap shut. Dad had discovered my hack, some forensic accountant sniffing my digital trail, and rather than drag me to family therapy, he'd chosen erasure.
Dissownment papers.
Served with a side of public humiliation. Mom's note inside was the kicker. We found the real Claire. She's coming home.
You.
Go back to where you came from. The real Claire. As if she were a lost luggage claim. I scanned the crowd, and there she was, sitting shotgun in the Harrington box, dressed in a knockoff sheath from Mom's closet, her hair blown out to match mine. She looked shell-shocked, clutching a mimosa like a lifeline, while Dad beamed like he'd just closed a hostile takeover. Voss's voice pulled me back. Claire Harrington. Applause erupted. But the Harringtons sat stone-faced. Mom's lips pursed so tight, I swear she swallowed her pearls. I took the mic. Heart a war drum. Thank you, President Ellison, Dean Hargrove, and Mr. Voss for this honor.
Today,
we celebrate not just degrees, but the lies we tell to get here. Gasps rippled, polite Harvard coughs turning to murmurs. We build empires on swapped foundations, on secrets fertilized in boardrooms and bedrooms. But what if the heir isn't who you think? What if the throne was stolen at conception? I locked eyes with Dad across the quad, his face purpling like overripe Cabernet. Ladies and gentlemen, the Harrington Scholarship isn't for bloodlines. It's for survivors.
And today,
I'm claiming it for every kid the system swapped out. The crowd went feral, cheers from the scholarship kids. Stunned silence from the legacy brats. Voss grinned like a wolf as I shook his hand, slipping me a card. My office. Midnight. We've got work. But as I descended the stage, Mom intercepted, her voice a hiss of Park Avenue venom. You little imposter. Security's on speed dial. I leaned in, close enough to smell her fierce sweat under the perfume.
Call them.
But remember, Evelyn, I've got the keys to your kingdom now. That night, in Voss's penthouse overlooking the Boston skyline, glass walls humming with the city's electric hum, I laid it all bare. The swap, the files, the real Claire who'd been airlifted in like a corporate asset. Voss didn't flinch. He poured scotch neat, the ice clinking like handcuffs. Harrington's been gunning for Apex for years, he said, eyes gleaming under the low lamps. Your father's a snake, poisoned deals, buried whistleblowers.
But you're
the antidote. He slid a folder across the mahogany desk, blueprints for Project Echo. Apex's crown jewel, a neural interface tech that could map minds, swap consciousnesses like digital suits. It's real.
Claire.
Not sci-fi bullshit. We've tested it on volunteers, terminally ill folks trading bodies for second chances. Ethical as hell. until the wrong hands get it. My pulse spiked. Echo. The ultimate revenge. Not just exposing the swap, but becoming it. What if I want in? I asked, voice steady as a merger clause. Voss studied me, then nodded. One condition, you take down Harrington from the inside. Use Echo to walk in their shoes, literally. But it's irreversible without the kill code, and that's in my vault. I signed the waiver at dawn, the city waking below like a beast stirring. They prepped me in a sterile lab under Apex's R&D wing, 4 drips of neural blockers, a helmet humming with quantum code. The real Claire, my Claire, the one from the streets, volunteered as the counterpart. I'd found her weeks ago, emailed her the files, and over burner phones. We'd bonded like feral cats, 2 sides of the same scarred coin. They stole my life, she'd growl during our first call, voice thick with Motown grit. You gonna let him keep yours?
No.
Hell no. The swap hit like drowning in static, my mind unraveling. Threads of self snapping and rewiring into her flesh. I woke in a body that felt borrowed, calluses on hands that had never held a tennis racket, tattoos peeking from under hospital scrubs, faded script reading rise on my ribs. But the eyes staring back from the mirror?
Mine. Hers. Ours.
Voss handed me a dossier. You're Claire Donovan now. Infiltrate Harrington as the long-lost daughter. I'll handle the optics, press release framing it as a heartwarming reunion gone corporate. Slipping into Harrington Capital was like crashing a wedding in your dead grandma's dress. Everyone knows something's off. But politeness keeps the knives sheathed. I arrived at the glass monolith on Park Avenue 2 weeks post-graduation. Claire Donovan on my visitor badge, escorted by a stone-faced PI Dad had hired to authenticate me. The real me, the lab-grown imposter, was holed up in a safe house in Queens, prepped for her role as the grateful prodigal. Voss's team had scrubbed my digital footprint, foster records altered, juvie expunged, a fabricated trail of struggles overcome that made me sound like a Hallmark movie reject. Dad greeted me in the executive lobby, all polished oak and abstract art that screamed, I own suffering. His handshake was limp, eyes scanning me like a balance sheet, tallying the ROI on 2 decades of misplaced investment. Claire, he boomed, too loud for the marble echoes. Welcome home. Mom hovered behind, pearls clutched like rosary beads, her smile a rictus of maternal regret. The boardroom waited upstairs, sharks in Armani, ready to vet the swap's PR value. The meeting was a circus of condescension. Tell us about your journey, Dad prompted, as if I were pitching a sob story for Shark Tank. I leaned back in the leather chair, crossing legs that still felt foreign, heavy boots scuffed from Detroit sidewalks, and spun the yarn Voss had scripted. Abandoned kid. Bootstraps yanked up through night classes, a vague family resemblance that led to the clinic bombshell. Gasps.
Nods.
The obligatory, inspirational murmurs. But under the table, my foot tapped a rhythm of rage, the same beat I'd coded into my first revenge algorithm at 16. Then came the test. What do you bring to Harrington? One VP sneered. A weasel named Hargrove, who'd audited my digital sins. I smiled, all street sharp edges, and pulled the trigger. Innovation. Your AI portfolio's stale, stuck in predictive analytics while Apex is mapping neural nets. I studied under Voss. I know their playbook. Let me lead a task force on consciousness tech. The room iced over. Dad's fork paused midair over his untouched Cobb salad. Voss? That vulture? Out of the question. But Mom, ever the social climber, saw the angle. Darling, It could reunite us publicly. The prodigal's tech pivot, think Forbes cover. They bought it. Hook and heirloom. By week's end, I was Claire Harrington Donovan, junior exec with a corner office overlooking Midtown's grind. The real Claire, my echo in her old skin, played the part flawlessly. Teary reunions on Good Morning America, gushing about second chances, while Voss fed her lines through an earpiece. She was the face, I was the fist. Nights blurred into code binges, hacking Harrington servers from my desk, siphoning merger files to Apex Dropboxes, planting digital breadcrumbs that painted Dad as the swap's architect, a cover-up that'd tank his SEC standing if leaked. But revenge isn't linear, it's a hydra. The first head reared when I found the other secret, buried in Dad's private vault, accessed via a retinal scan I bypassed with a contact lens rig from Apex's Black Ops. Not just the swap files, but a ledger of dirt, bribes to politicians, a whistleblower suicide in '09 that smelled like wet work, and worst, the real Claire's biomom, not a junkie. A Harrington intern, impregnated by Dad during a team-building retreat, hushed up and shipped off with a payout that bought silence but not survival. She'd OD'd 6 months pregnant. The baby me. The street Claire, salvaged from the wreckage and donated anonymously. Dad hadn't just stolen a life. He'd engineered 2 orphans to feed his legacy machine. I confronted him in his study that scotch-soaked Thursday, rain lashing the windows like accusations. "You killed her," I said, slapping the printouts on his desk. He didn't deny, he deflected, cigar smoke curling like alibis. Collateral.
Claire.
Business is war. Sacrifices build empires. His eyes, bloodshot from too many late-night deals, held no remorse, just calculation. "You're now. Help me bury this. Or join her." The threat hung.
Paternal poison.
I laughed harsh, unladylike bark that echoed off the bookshelves. "Bury it? I'm the shovel. Richard." That decision was the first controversial cut. Leak or leverage. I chose leverage, emailing Voss a redacted version, enough to arm Apex's lawyers without torching the boardroom yet. But the swap's toll crept in, phantom pains where her scars pulled, dreams of Detroit blizzards bleeding into Hampton summers. And then there was Ethan, Dad's golden boy from a discreet affair. My half-brother who'd inherited the charm but none of the spine. He cornered me in the elevator one dawn, reeking of last night's coke and conquests. "Heard you're the new pet project," he slurred, hand grazing my arm like ownership. "Don't get comfy. Street rat." "Daddy's got plans." I twisted free, me connecting with his groin in a move I'd learned in Philly alleys, not her memories, but mine bleeding through the neural seams. As he crumpled, wheezing apologies, I whispered, "Plans change. Ethan. Watch your back." It was the first bloodless strike, but the guilt gnawed. Was I becoming the monster? Or just shedding the sheep's clothing? Voss called it necessary evolution. The real Claire. Over encrypted video from the safe house. Just grinned. Hit harder next time. For both of us. The tension coiled tighter as fall bled into winter. Manhattan's lights smearing like accusations in the perpetual drizzle. I pushed the Echo integration, framing it as employee wellness tech to mask the MindSwap potential while siphoning funds to Apex shell companies. Dad grew paranoid. Installing keyloggers, I danced around with VPN ghosts, his rants about disloyalty echoing board meetings. Mom drowned in Xanax brunches, confiding slurred regrets over Rose. We thought we could rewrite fate.
Claire. But you're
different. Hungrier. Damn right I was. Hunger was the only inheritance that mattered. By December, the heist was primed, a shareholder vote to merge Harrington with the Apex Front, rigged with my insider votes. But Ethan sniffed the wind, hacking my personal drive amateur hour, but enough to uncover the echo waiver. He burst into my office Christmas Eve, face twisted like a bad facelift. You're a freak. Swapped brains? Dad'll crucify you. I didn't flinch. I hit send on the leak. Whistleblower files to the Wall Street Journal. Time to drop at midnight mass. Crucify?
Nah.
I'm the resurrection. The holidays in the Harrington household were always a farce, catered excess masking the rot beneath, like turkeys stuffed with resentment. But that Christmas Eve, as snow blanketed the city in false purity, the farce shattered. The Journal piece hit at 11:57 p.m. Harrington Capital's dark secret, embryonic swap scandal rocks Wall Street dynasty. By dawn, CNBC was looping my anonymous tip, clinic payoffs, the intern's death, Dad's ledger of sins, while talking heads dissected the ethical apocalypse of designer heirs. The stock plummeted 18% before the opening bell, wiping billions in a blink. Dad's war room was the penthouse library, a bunker of leather-bound ledgers and crystal decanters now stained with spilled bourbon. He paced like a caged panther, barking orders at lawyers who scattered like roaches. Mom hovered in a silk kimono, popping pills like candy, her eyes darting to me, the Claire, the imposter one, freshly helicoptered in from the safe house for family solidarity. She'd nailed the role, wide-eyed innocence, scripted soundbites about healing fractures. But I saw the flicker, the street Claire's fire-banked but unquenchable. You're behind this, Dad snarled at me during the chaos, finger jabbing like a deposition. The board had convened remotely, faces pixelated ghosts demanding his head. That Voss stench all over it. I met his gaze, calm as a loaded revolver. Prove it, Richard. Or better yet, admit it. The swap. The cover-up. Hell. The intern you knocked up and discarded like yesterday's post. The room, Ethan.
Mom.
A handful of VPs on Zoom froze. Ethan's lip curled, but Mom gasped, hand to throat. Claire. Darling.
That's
libelous. Liberating, I corrected, tossing the vault printouts onto the coffee table. They fluttered like indictments, pages curling in the firelight. You built this on lies. I just turned on the floodlights. Dad lunged, but Ethan intercepted, dragging him back as veins bulged like fault lines. She's bluffing, Dad. The freak's mind-meddling. That word, freak, ignited something primal. The swap's neural scar tissue flaring. I grabbed Ethan's collar, slamming him against the bookshelves, spines cracked like bones. Call me that again, and I'll show you freakish. Security hauled me out, but not before I whispered to the real Claire, our eyes locking in that split-second sisterhood. Your move. She nodded, subtle as a heartbeat. And later that night, as copters whirred overhead with media hounds, she slipped Voss the kill code coordinates, buried in a snowman ornament on the terrace. Per our plan. Phase 2, the counterswap. While Dad lawyered up, barricading the penthouse like Fort Knox, I vanished into the Apex Black site, a converted warehouse in Red Hook, Brooklyn, where Echo's full rig waited, cryopods humming with illicit promise. The reversal was agony amplified, mind ripping free like Velcro from flesh, synapses screaming as identities collided. I woke in my old body, the lab-grown one, smoother skin.
Noinek.
but echoes of her grit lingering like phantom limbs. The street Claire emerged from her pod changed too, softened edges, but eyes steelier, ready to claim the throne we'd co-opted. Feels weird. Huh, she said, flexing fingers that'd once gripped mine in code. Like wearing someone else's revenge. We laughed. Brittle and true. Then parted. Her to the Harrington front. Me to Voss's War Council. The retaliation escalated into a corporate cage match. Manhattan's skyline a coliseum of glass and greed. Dad countersued Apex for industrial espionage, painting me as the Manchurian candidate, brain-swap saboteur. Pundits ate it up, Fox calling it woke warfare, CNN a gender-flip succession. Protests erupted outside Harrington HQ, foster kids chanting no more swaps, while Wall Street bros decried trust erosion. I went underground. Voss's penthouse a foxhole of monitors tracking the bleed, stock at 42%. Dad's allies peeling off like scabs. But the controversial calls mounted, each a razor wire I walked. First, doxing Ethan's affair network, not just conquests, but payoffs to silence a string of hotel maids and models, unearthed from his cloud backups. The leak hit TMZ like chum in shark water. He spiraled, checking into rehab amid page 6 scorn. Ruthless, Voss approved over encrypted line. But necessary. Was it? Ethan's texts begged mercy. Sis. Whatever you want. Just stop. And for a beat. I saw the brother he could have been. Unpoisoned by privilege. I ghosted him. Mercy was a luxury for the unscarred. Second gut punch. Mom's intervention. She cornered me at a neutral spot, a hushed tea room in the village, away from paparazzi drones. End this.
Claire.
For Evelyn. Her hands trembled, liver spotted under the lace gloves, as she slid a check across the table. 8 figures. Reparations. We were wrong. Terrified of scandal. But you're still. Family. The word twisted like a knife. Family? The woman who dressed my wounds as a kid. Braided my hair for prom. Now bartered like a stock option. I tore the check, letting shreds snow the saucers. Family doesn't disown over DNA. Evelyn. It earns it. Her sob followed me out. Raw and ruined, a sound I'd replay in nightmares, questioning if vengeance was just inherited venom. The climax brewed in January's freeze. A shareholder summit at the plaza, gilded opulence clashing with the storm outside. Dad had rallied the old guard. A last-ditch merger with a Chinese conglomerate to outflank Apex. I crashed it as Consultant Donovan, badge swiped from a bribed intern. The real Claire feeding me real-time hacks from the wings. The ballroom buzzed, crystal chandeliers swaying like pendulums. Tycoons in tuxes toasting survival. Dad took the dais. Voice gravel over silk. Harrington indoors. Scandals are sandcastles. Empires are stone. I stood. Unscripted. Heart thundering like the nor'easter rattling the windows. Stone crumbles. Richard. Especially when built on graves. The mic was hot in my grip, stolen from a podium AV tech, and I unloaded the full ledger. Projected via a ghost signal onto the ballroom screens, bribes. The intern's autopsy faked as OD. But toxicology screamed foul play. Even Echo's blueprint. Acquired from Apex, leaks I'd planted to frame him. Chaos erupted. Shouts. Phones dinging with SEC alerts. Dad's face ashen as security swarmed. He charged the stage. Fist cocked, a daddy dearest meltdown for the ages.
You bitch.
I made you. I sidestepped. Knee to gut, street reflexes in polished skin, and as he wheezed,
I leaned in. No.
You broke us. Both Claires.
And now?
You're done. Voss's team breached the doors then. Private security in tailored suits. Warrants flashing like badges in a Scorsese flick. Arrests followed. Fraud. Manslaughter cover-up. The works. The real Claire stepped from the shadows. Taking the mic for the coda. This isn't revenge. It's reckoning. The fallout was biblical. Harrington capital gutted like a fish on the trading floor. Shares cratering to pennies by week's end. Dad rotted in a Manhattan detention cell. Bail denied amid the media maelstrom. Ethan fled to Ibiza. His trust frozen. Last seen snorting lines off a yacht influencer's abs. Mom sold the penthouse to cover legal fees. Vanishing to a wellness retreat in Sedona that smelled like reinvention via crystals and NDAs. The Journal dubbed it the swap apocalypse. Therapists booked solid debating inherited trauma on podcasts, while Voss scooped the carcass, acquiring Harrington's remnants for a steal. Installing the real Claire as interim CEO.
Me?
I faded into the ether. Voss's consultant emeritus, holed up in a loft in Williamsburg with views of the East River's moody churn. The swap's aftershocks lingered, neural ghosts. Flashes of Detroit winters in my dreams. Her laugh echoing in quiet moments. We'd meet monthly. 2 Claires over craft IPAs at dive bars. Dissecting the wreckage like generals post-battle. Worth it, she'd ask. Her, my old, hands nursing a scar from a bar fight I'd never thrown.
Either not.
Clinking glasses. For the truth?
Yeah.
For the empire? Debatable. But truth. That slippery bastard. Had one last twist, a reversal that'd keep shrinks in business for decades. It dropped in March. Via a manila envelope slipped under my door. No return address. Postmarked from the clinic's ashes in Boston. Inside, a thumb drive. Labeled Project Legacy, the real file. I plugged it in. Alone with the hum of my laptop and the distant wail of an ambulance, City Symphony for unraveling souls. The video crackled to life. Grainy security cam from '03. The fertility lab's sterile glow. There was Mom. Younger. Radiant in a cashmere twin set. Signing consents with Dad at her elbow. The embryologist, a nervous kid with a clipboard, mumbled about viable matches. Cut to the incubation room. 2 petri dishes labeled H1, Harrington, and D47, Donovan. Anonymous donor. But the swap?
Noxidin.
The kid doc. Bribed by Dad's check, flashed on screen. 6 figures, deliberately crossed them. For the greater legacy, the note read, Dad's handwriting serpentine. The street stocks got fire. Breathe it in. My stomach hollowed. No contamination. No cosmic fuck-up. Dad had chosen it, grafted the fire of a survivor into his bloodline, gambling on grit to fortify his heir. The real Claire, the lab one, the imposter, was the pure Harrington, engineered for compliance. I was the wild card, the biohack for ambition. And Mom? She'd known. For the follow-up email. It'll make her unbreakable. Darling. Our perfect weapon. The betrayal inverted like a funhouse mirror. I'd avenged the wrong victim. Torched Dad for a crime he wore like a badge. Elevated the stolen life that was, in fact, the prize. I called the other Claire. Voice cracking as rain lashed the windows. It was deliberate. He wanted you to be the street rat for the edge. Silence. Then her laugh, bitter. Brooklyn bred. So, I'm the princess after all?
And you're... What?
The mule? We hung up fractured. The empire we'd claimed now a poisoned chalice. Voss got wind, always did, and summoned me to his yacht off the Hamptons. Champagne fizzing against the chop. Twist changes nothing, he said, wind whipping his silver mane. You won. Harrington's dust, Apex reigns. But his eyes held the calculation, Echo's code. Now in our hands, ripe for black market bids. I saw it then, the cycle's snake eating its tail. What if I walk? I asked, the sea spray bitter on my lips. He shrugged. Your call. But power's addictive.
Claire.
Swaps and all. I chose the biopic ending, or the tragic one, depending on your poison. Sold my shares back to Apex for a quiet 7 figures. Enough to fund a foundation for foster tech education, no strings. No thrones. The other Claire took the CEO gig. Her street cred now legend. But we drifted, holidays unanswered. Calls gone to voicemail. Last I heard, she was dating a senator, birthing a new dynasty.
Me?
I code in anonymity. Brooklyn Alley's my boardroom. Building apps for the swapped-out kids who'll never get a second body, let alone a first fair shot. Was it had a happy ending? Ask the tabloids. Vindication or vendetta? I drive the GWB at midnight sometimes. Radio blasting Springsteen, Born to Run anthems for the betrayed, wondering if Dad's jail cell echoes with regrets. If Mom's crystals mend the maternal fracture. Or if, in the end, we all swap pieces of ourselves, willing or not, in the grand American hustle. The truth? It's you, Am. It's gray as the Hudson fog, and it'll argue itself hoarse long after the credits roll. But if there's a lesson in this meat grinder of a life, it's this. Blood don't always make family. But fire forges it, or burns it all to ash. Choose your blaze wisely.